Hi everybody, it's me, The Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Janet, are you there? We're not hearing you on this end. Janet or Sasha, are you guys there? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, Barry, you there? Karen, are you there as well?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and try and reconnect here with Janet and Dr. Sasha Lessin. Just a moment, please.
Aloha, can you hear us?
Yes, you're coming through now.
Don't know why you couldn't hear us. Okay, well, we'll just talk on the computer speaker. So, sorry, listeners, let me start over. I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin, and this is the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Having slight technical difficulties today. We are conducting a panel, a discussion panel, which we are calling Aliens Among Us, and we have our very special guests, researcher, author Karen Christine Patrick and Barry Strohm. And Barry has a book called Aliens Among Us, Exploring Past and Present, which was the inspiration for the name of the panel today. And before we start the show, Karen's been with us for many, many months, years almost, working as a co-host on some of the shows on Korean Radio Network. And Barry is new to us. We met him recently about a few weeks ago, and we've been having him on our shows, and he's a delight. I'll tell you a little bit about Barry. Let me get his bio. He was born near Hershey, Pennsylvania, but he currently resides in Park City, Utah. He has a wife, Connie, of 50 years. He graduated from Lehigh University with a business management degree, and he is a civil engineer. He is a current owner of Golden Lane Antique Gallery in New Oxford, Pennsylvania, which is one of the most haunted structures in the country. And what started as a casual interest in paranormal photography became an obsession as the author was led along the path of learning about the afterlife and the presence of aliens among us. The gift of spirit communication allows the author to contact the spirit of deceased aliens and obtain actual information that has never before appeared in print. So first, let me have Dr. Lessin say something. Dr. Lessin's been reading the book, Aliens Among Us. The last 2 days, I gave him the copy of the book, and he went to it. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Okay, yeah. One of the most interesting things to me in Barry's book is that his direct interviews with an alien, and it seems that several people of the hundreds that Jan and I have interviewed have been chosen as ambassadors, representatives of a civilization of many, many aliens that are concerned with Earth, that care about us. We've had Ken Johnston on, Michael Lee Hill, Janet herself is in contact with or embodies Nimma, Cindy Crawford. And so we have a number of ambassadors who are telling us now is the time to stop scaring ourselves about the extraterrestrials, that they are beneficent, they're caring, and that there is a way, way broader, more sophisticated society waiting for us to grow up and go through our incarnations and realize that we're all part of and this is Barry's particular part, his ET thing, part of the universe of a particular God, and that there's different universes with different gods. But anyway, I hope we'll get into all that.
Okay, with that, I would like to welcome Barry on to the show. And then as soon as Barry, we talk to you a little bit, we're going to bring on Karen, and then we will begin our roundtable discussion. So welcome to the show, Barry Strohm.
Well, I thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you guys. I've done a lot of reading about the doctor myself, and I'm very, very anxious for the conversation tonight.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. I know you've been on some of our other shows, but this is a slightly different format where we're going to do a panel, and I think you'll enjoy it. And then, we'll do some other interviews with you along the road here, because I think what you have stumbled upon or come upon closely resonates to what I've been doing, which since I was born, I've been talking to interdimensionals and extraterrestrials. I was born into a haunted house, which seemed to be a portal to other worlds. And so I love it that you're coming along this part of my life to help explain these things that happened to me too. But let's just put you on pause here for one moment, and we're going to call on Karen just to say hello, and then we'll start our round of questions. We're going to ask each other questions, and put a talking point up there on the table there. Hi, Karen, and we're getting interference. Sean, I don't know if there's some way you could do that, but go ahead and try to talk over it, and Sean will probably correct it on his end.
Yeah, I hear a loud interference. Oh, and it's gone. Yay, because that's what it was. Sometimes on our shows we get some paranormal activity, or perhaps paramilitary, I'm not sure. But that just means to me that we're on the right track and we're saying the right stuff, and somebody around doesn't want to hear it, but it is time. And I'm also a contactee myself, and I am going to paraphrase Bob Dean here, saying that not only are we not alone, but we've never been alone. So I'm real anxious to hear what Barry has to say, because yeah, I agree. We do have aliens among us. I honestly believe sometimes you guys got to pay attention to the more odd people that you have on your social media, because that very well could be, what better way to come on and talk to us is through our social media. So I believe sometimes we're talking to aliens when we're on social media. So that's just a talking point to maybe think about later. But yeah, I'm very excited about this topic. I'm really glad to join you guys on Sacred Matrix. I really enjoy we use the panel format, and it's a meeting in the morning. It's awesome. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. What did you want to say, Sasha? You look like you have a question on your
Oh,
face.
just when we start having them round, I have some things I'd like us to discuss, that's all.
Okay. I'm not sure exactly. I guess we should go boy, girl, boy, girl. And do you have a question you want to first throw out to the panel?
Well, I have it that part of the aliens among us are the aliens within us, and that we have genes that are becoming increasingly activated as the environmental circumstances, including the alignment of the of Earth with other planetary energies, awakens the alien within us in terms of, especially because it's a holographic universe, and the Akashic records of where we can go in our series of reincarnations and our evolution is all there within. And so it's, in a way, this whole within and without is just a spurious dichotomy. And so anytime we start to language things, what we're doing is just splitting it up to talk about it, but it's really a whole. So I thought I'd throw that out for conversation.
Okay. Would you like to, how do you want to start? Do you have a question? You just want to have us?
When you access the alien within you or the contactee within you, what do you get and what do they tell you that's useful to you and useful to humanity? That's my question.
Okay, great. So let's try to go about 3 to 5 minutes each person. And if you could keep an eye on your own clock when you start, when you need to stop, that would be great. So we just keep mixing up the conversation and going around table here. So Barry, since you're our special guest of honor tonight, I'd like you to go first with that and say the question again.
Okay, so what does either the alien energy within you or the contactee within you that can access the alien, what messages, the main messages, does it bring back for your benefit and the benefit of humanity?
Okay, Barry, take it away.
Okay. Well, our contact with the spirit presence is a little different than what most of you are accounting. We talk to the spirit of an alien that has passed. The alien that we converse with, his name is Mu. He passed in 1987 in our time. He was a blue alien, and he was brought to us by the other guides because I started asking questions about the alien presence. We do an awful lot of spiritual contact here. We have probably channeled over 400 hours with the different types of guides. And about a year and a half ago, I started asking alien questions, and all of a sudden they said, well, we're going to introduce you to somebody who can answer your questions because he is one. Next session we had, in comes Mu, and he introduces himself. And we start to be able to ask him questions. And in most instances, he is very free with telling us why they're there, how they communicate, and what they want us to know. I've copied down a couple of his comments, and some of them sum up very well what they, why they're here. One of the first statements of his that I'll read to you is, "We are here to help you. We do not want your planet. We have our own thank you, and we do not want to harm you. This is all nonsense that we want what you have. We are here to make sure that you can make the leap when you are ready." That's a pretty clear statement that they're, only here to help us. If you look through my book, we use a little bit different approach to things. Like we go through all of the different ancient alien situations, such as the Nazca Lines, and I actually ask Mu what they stand for, and he tells me exactly what the different images, such as the spider or the alien that's on the hillside at Nazca mean. We have a chapter on biblical reference where he tells us which of the references are accurate, which are alien presence, which are miracles of God or the angels. And as you trace through this whole ancient pattern, you can really see that through the years and through the millennium, the aliens have been among us, and they've done many, many things to lead us down the road. As our learning and abilities have increased so rapidly in the current times, I think they're lowering the veil, and they want to make themselves more aware of why they're here. The problem that we're up against is the governments obviously are trying to keep their presence a secret from us. So I firmly believe that they're coming to us and giving us all this information so that we can bring it out to the public, that certain members of the public or listeners or people with open minds will have the knowledge for when disclosure actually does come. And there's going to be a time, it's inevitable, that the governments decide they have to tell us about what's going on. In my book, I address all the great happenings like Roswell or the Rendlesham Forest. And I actually asked Mu what has taken place in those instances. And those were authentic alien presence that came before us. The Rendlesham Forest in particular was a major turning point for the British government, because they really had a hell of a time covering that one up, because they had military people that were the witnesses to it. So, as we progress and as we have the alien presence comes more and more to us, I think we're going to be more and more aware of just why they are here. If you look at things, the Milky Way is immense, having hundreds of billions of stars in it. One example that I read was that if the Milky Way was a grain of sand, the grains of sand just in the Milky Way would fill up an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So it gives you some idea of the immenseness of what's around us. And if each of those stars has planets, there's got to be life out there. And there indeed is. And Mu has given me a lot of information on the size of their ships, what they do, why they do abductions, just basically all the information that's behind it. But logically, they are so advanced. If they meant us harm, we'd be dead. I mean, they have the ability to hide from us. They can make themselves invisible. They can be shapeshifters. They are among us. They have bred with humans through the years. Mu has told us that both my wife and I have got alien blood into us, and maybe that's why they picked us for part of the communication process.
Okay, Barry, I'd like to just bookmark it right there and give Karen a chance to explain.
Sure.
What was the question again?
The question is, what has been conveyed to you that has benefited you as an individual and the people of this planet?
Okay, Karen, your turn.
This is really interesting, and I had two questions. When you were saying we, it sounds like you had a team working with you for these downloads or sessions that you've been recording, and I just want to know who we was. And the other question I have is really interested about the Nazca Lines, particularly what the spider image means. So that's my question for now.
Well, Karen, what I wanted to do is this round is you reflect on your experiences and tell our listeners about what's happened to you with your contact and how that affected you individually. And right, so we'll go in.
Oh,
you can ask
I can do that.
Yes. Okay, go.
Okay, hold that question, and I'll just say that I'm a contactee. I found out that I could make contact through ancestral lines. So I have a Druid and shaman background, being Native American and Irish. That kind of opens you up to the other world, as it were. And I found out I could contact various ancestors that had passed, and that's the shocker was for me discovering a few alien ones, particularly Anunnaki. And it was similar experiences you're seeing, is learning a lot of things that are important, and just how the game is set up here on Earth, what we're going through, and how we are definitely being assisted through this next couple of phases of our growth. It's sort of like a civilization grows up like a child grows up, as above, so below sort of thing. And so we're in an adolescent phase where our value systems are very, materialistic, but we're at a point where, just like, believe me, I had 3 adolescents at the same time. The teenagers are the same, in a very short, just 2 years apart between all of them. And so that's a very interesting age, very kind of learning a lot, becoming mature with backlashes into kamikaze behavior, self-destructive, or, on the verge. And so, we've been doing our nuclear thing and our war thing, but it seems like we're, they're trying to foment things, but it's not working. People are beginning to have this underlying feeling that there's got to be more to our existence and materialism and conflict. So this is some of the things that I've, gotten an impression and learned. And I've done a lot of automatic writing, which is what I've been learning too. So I've learned a lot of detail stuff that's really been helpful to me personally, to make me feel better about who I am, that my difficulties I'm facing are partly because of the setup of the game, and it's okay. I can, it gets better from here, I think. I hope. So that's my comment.
Okay, thanks. Sasha.
Okay. Yeah, I think that important set of dreams that I had has given me a lot of guidance. And I saw, this is before there was peace between Israel and Egypt. I saw the Egyptians and the Israelis taking tanks and planes and stuff and throwing them in a big pit, and then taking tractors and burying those. And then each side showed the other its folk dances. And I knew that my mission was to see what I could contribute to peace on this planet. So that I think that it profoundly gave me a purpose in life as an individual, and perhaps I can contribute and have been contributing to humanity.
Okay, that it. Okay. And then for me, I've been a contactee all my life, and it's only in this time frame, looking back at my life, that I'm beginning to understand what kind of contact I was having. And at the time it was happening, I thought it was all ghosts. I didn't know how to explain to myself. I was born in 1954, so back then there was no um, there was no rational for extraterrestrials because we really didn't have that. Later on, they started exploring extraterrestrial contact in movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still, and that for me was a great eye opener because that was more like the contact I was having. There were ghosts, there were some beings that felt kind of I want to say demonic, but more like just negative energy where they had their own agenda, or perhaps they were trapped in the bardo and struggling, and so their struggle um, came through to me, and I felt that it wasn't very comfortable. I could feel what they were feeling. I could, witness them, and so I didn't know what to do with it. I was a child. So as I got older, I met Dr. Lesson, and we started to explore these episodes in psychotherapy, doing hypnotherapy regressions, and also utilizing Tantra. I learned how to channel using Tantra, where I got into a high energetic orgastic state. And Dr. Lesson has a procedure where you kind of set your consciousness aside. Who was that from? Bill Baldwin or yeah, and it was a procedure that was out there, and he learned how to do it in a workshop, and he did it with me, and I was able to pull whoever wanted to speak through me. Of course, we always protected. I didn't let dark energies come in and take me over, but they were allowed to communicate through me without taking over, and we started cataloging and documenting things. I didn't allow the level of documentation, Barry, that you do, because I felt self-conscious about it. But we started to just write about some of the things and remembering the story. So now the gateways are open. It seems like that's what's happening with your group. The gateways are open, and the beings from other realms and dimensions and extraterrestrials see that you can see them, and they have a need to communicate. So they are communicating with us, and I'm very happy that we are now at this time where we can have intelligent conversations with these extraterrestrials and interdimensionals. All right, so the next question will come from Karen. And Karen, how about we'll try a little bit different structure. What would you like to share? If there's some kind of burning share you want to say at this time based on the first round of discussion, and then please tell us your question that you want us all to answer.
I still wanted to go back to that question. I was curious about Barry's group because I'm intrigued about how a dynamics of a group would happen. Because I'd like to have something like that in my life. It sounds good and supported. And then I really was curious about the Nazca Lines. I've been curious about the geoglyphs or things that you can see from space, because myself and some other researchers, we've discovered not just Nazca Lines, but also similar types of structures on the moon that look like guidance structures and can only be seen from space, probably as navigational aids. So I'm just want to know more about that. Really have a burning question there.
Okay, so we'll pass the baton to Barry. If you could tell Karen and our listeners a little bit more about your group and its structure, and then we'll go to the lines, Nazca and Moon lines. Take it away, Barry.
Okay. We do board channeling here. I don't know if the listeners understand that. The board we use is similar to a Ouija board, but it's not. We've actually had the spirits design the board for us. They gave us prayer protection, and I can channel in a spirit, ask them questions, and they answer it on the board, one letter at a time. We videotape everything and keep track of all the messages. I always do a transcript after the session's over, and we always go in with a whole list of questions for the spirits. When I'm going to be asking questions about space or aliens, I make the questions up a day ahead of time, and believe it or not, Moo usually knows what the questions are that I'm going to ask him. Or they'll bring the different guides in they need to answer the questions. I never really realized we had the ability to do this. All of my early work was just done with the master guides and with the spirits that we could channel. And, once they brought Moo in, he informed me that he wants to write 2 more books other than the ones we've done already. He and I are halfway through the second book where he's giving me great details. He's describing the spaceships, how they travel, how the wormholes work, just an amazing amount of information that he's giving to us. I don't know if that answers your questions, but it has been an amazing it's been an amazing journey with this guy, and he participates whenever we request his presence.
That's fantastic. So the Nazca lines you mentioned earlier, and just really curious about that, and particularly the spider imagery, because the spider imagery has come up quite a few times in various researchers I work with. Literally, that there's literally spider beings. In one instance, we discovered that there were hybrid beings, hybrid human spider beings. So, and also the Native American theme of the spider grandmother or the spider grandfather comes up. I was just curious what you got from the spider imagery of the Nazca lines. What information came out? Yeah.
Well, what Moo has said is that the image of the spider, that is the image of the aliens themselves, that they stood about 6 foot tall, and they wanted to leave a remembrance of what their presence looked like. So they made the spiders to resemble the actual aliens that were there helping to do the lines. The hummingbird, the long lines in the wings were their landing lanes for their smaller ships. So they felt that if they did it in the shape of something that everybody would remember, that it would stick with the people longer. There is an astronaut that's carved into a hillside down there, and that was done as a demonstration of their laser weapons. So they actually cut that into that hillside using their laser weapons. And everything means something. The big Pulpa Flat Mountain, that was a landing area for them. So it's an incredible place. And once you really learn about what's going on and what the aliens meant to the people of the time, it's a very interesting chapter in the book. I had more information, and I kind of ran out of space in that chapter. But there's a lot to learn about the Nazca lines.
I have a question.
Just final on the Nazca lines. There's a picture of a monkey. I think, is that in the Nazca lines or in another area?
No, there's a monkey down there, and I did not check with him what that stood for. I missed that one.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Thank you for the information.
I have a question about the spiders. It was very interesting when I watched Babylon 5. I did binge watching that whole series, and they had a large spider-type creature that was kind of like their enemy they were fighting. And then when I did my channeling, I kept seeing spiders, and I didn't really get any words or communication. And I kept saying, "What's with the spiders? I can't get the question." an answer. But I wonder, are spiders that are, there's lots of spiders all over the planet. We live in the jungle here, and there are, a dozen or so varieties of spiders, and they come in my house. So sometimes you're, going to the bathroom at night, and there's one hanging on the wall behind the toilet, and they can get rather large. Are the spiders, the tiny spiders, related to these larger bipedal or whatever they were spiders, which might be related to larger beings like we have in what was that The Hobbit, I think it is. They end up fighting the large spider beings. Is there something that's coming through in our mythology and in the reality that and then I think Karen, you said there were spider images on the moon. Maybe there's some correlation here we're missing, but are they all related, from the tiniest spider to the giant spiders flying through the cosmos? Anybody have any ideas on that?
It's quite possible. If you look at that Nazca spider, I mean, that's exactly what our spiders of today look like. It's quite conceivable that the aliens would have left smaller versions of themselves here. The deeper I delve into things with Mu, the more I'm amazed at just how inclusive the information and what they've done on this planet has been. I don't think there's any area of our civilization that they haven't touched.
Okay, Karen, what was your finding with you and your partner, Brett? You were looking at spiders on the moon or something? Some images of spiders?
Yeah, they were, I think we talked about it on a show before, but it's basically a species. There was a interbreeding between humanoids and spiders. And it first came up, Brett, of course, sees, embedded imagery in lunar pictures, and we did an article about this, about the spider people. And it came up going all the way back to Rome. It was meant as a satire or a comedy, but a gentleman named Lucius talked about beings on the moon that had 4 legs and 4 arms and that sort of thing. And in this particular image Brett found, they had if you had a whole, it's like the human spider hybrid thing didn't work out directly. So you got either a being that was more spidery or more humanoid. And in this particular image, they were having a funeral, and the spiders were used to desiccate and wrap up the body for the funeral, and they were all sad and wearing black. And also I also learned that they also treated humans for injuries. So like if you injured your arm or something, they could inject, something to make it numb so you could have surgery and stuff. And then this goes all the way back. There's so many folklores that involve spider beings, and of course the Native Americans have the spider revered, being as the spider grandmother, as being weaving our reality constructs, which is kind of a good way to put how the energetics of the universe kind of came about. So I just been finding it very interesting how many different places we found spider imagery in our history, folklore, and these various researchers are either seeing or meeting the spider beings, and it was also discussed, believe it or not, by a man who wrote a book about going to the moon, and believe it or not, it was Cyrano de Bergerac, and he actually, I've read a part of what he wrote in French, and he wrote about beings having 4 legs and 2 arms, and so that would be your cross, instead of getting an 8-legged a human, you got 4 legs and 4 arms. So this motif keeps coming up, and it's probably very interesting. But yeah, I agree. I believe it was an alien species, and I believe there was an attempt to cross humans and intelligent spider beings. And of course, J.R. Tolkien was writing about them as well, and he pulled from a lot of folklore. So I'm not sure what folklore he got the spider being idea, but if it's in there, he's probably got some kind of folklore reference to these beings. They might even be interdimensional as well.
Okay, great. Barry, your turn to ask a question of the panel that you would all, or introduce a topic you'd like us to all discuss.
What type of alien do you think has done the most good for this planet? Or do you think that it's just interspersed with all the different types, like the Arcturians or maybe the little whites? What breed of aliens do you think have done the most good for us here?
Okay, Sasha.
What I know of the most is that the Anunnaki have done the most good and the most bad. That they are, we are they, and the habits and the training that we got, as well as the genetic propensities that we got, are direct gifts and curses from those who created us by adapting their genome from the planet Nibiru to the planet Earth, using some genes from Homo erectus and lots of mitochondrial genes, particularly from Anunnaki women. So we're mostly Anunnaki, and they kept breeding with the prettiest of our ancestresses. They basically, being about 1,000 of them or so, pitted us against each other in different religions and languages, and made sure that we never got together to realize that we were being manipulated from above until recently, when Galzu from the Federation, basically the higher-ups, ordered the Anunnaki to foster this planet and to make sure that we're okay. And Marduk, Prince Marduk, who'd been causing so much of the strife here, said he wishes to make amends, and the Anunnaki are here among us in the highest positions of government, and all the governments working to save this planet and help us in our evolution, in my humble opinion.
Okay, well, I'll take a turn. Oh, yeah, I'm an Anunnaki researcher along with Dr. Lesson, so I've really immersed myself in the story. Basically, I immersed myself in the Anunnaki literature because I was raised Christian, and there were a lot of questions. Christianity left me full of questions, and so I never stopped investigating it. I'm a contactee experiencer, and my earliest contact was probably with the Greys or some Grey being. From my research and my understanding as a contactee, these are often the delivery system. They pick up people and return them. They are worker species, although they are so they're highly intelligent, just like the Anunnaki and other species, and they're very ancient, and so their interaction with humanity, of course, there's very diverse understandings, but the ones that I can only speak from my personal experience, I've never met a mean or evil Gray. They were always kind to me or neutral. They were just, I think a lot of people are fearing them because of their neutral emotions, and they can't feel them. They can't find them emotionally. And as humans, we always feel people. We have this sixth sense that we feel people, and if we're not feeling them, it kind of freaks us out. I also interacted with the mantis. I needed a deep healing. It was an emotional abuse issue. I was molested by a young boy. I wanted to die, and this mantis came in and literally held me in her arms. I was a 10-year-old human child, and in her arms, I was the size of a newborn infant. But it was very loving and nurturing, and so I get that they're kind beings. I've interacted with the reptoids, the reptilians, and from my understanding now, and doing therapy around it, and hypnosis and regression. At the time, I thought the reptilians were intending to harm me, but now in hindsight, their form of communication, all these beings communicate telepathically, but the energy that they inflict on the third eye crown chakra feels almost like you're being your soul sucked out of your body, but it wasn't. It was just they were trying to teach me how to communicate with them, and over time I learned to communicate with them. So I identify with the Enki, Nima, and Thoth, Nikashita, who were the co-creators of humanity. I have studied it intensely, and I've also channeled all three of those beings, and the energy I get from them is kind, loving, and supportive. Of course, there were things going on here, and the remnants of their politics is what we have today, which I don't like. I don't like human politics. I don't like the war, endless wars. I don't like the political system that we have. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it treats people kind across the board. Anyway, I'll get off my, and there's some kind of strange noise going on here. Okay, we're going to find out that later. I will pass that to, I guess, Barry, you can answer your own question, and then Karen will be next.
I'm kind of the opinion that they all work together, that there's no single alien type that has done more for us. I think there's probably more Greys or Arcturians in most of them. From what Moo tells me, when they're coming here on these missions, there's all different kinds of aliens on the same ships. Moo refers to himself as a blue. He tells me that his planet is on the far reach of the Milky Way, about the size of Jupiter. It has 2 suns and 8 moons, and they live to be about 950 of our years. He stands about 9.5 foot, small ears, small nose, and a big mouth. And his hands are like ours, but interestingly, his feet are another set of hands. So he, by any definition, he is a bit on the strange side. He has told us that we're going to have a special session in about 3 weeks where he is going to merge dimensions, that we're actually going to be able to see him in person and touch him. So that should be quite interesting. So we're getting ready for that here. That could be a real turning point for us in our different sessions. But he states that they all work together pretty well up there. They're all part of the commission. They come in here under an agreement not to really interfere with us that much. And they observe. In my mind, I think of the aliens coming here a lot like us going to the zoo to watch the animals. He's described us as a very young civilization, and he said we're actually not as violent as some of the other intelligent young civilizations in the galaxy. So I don't really think any of them are doing more for us than another type. That's just kind of my opinion from what he's told us, but I think they just simply all work together to try to work for our betterment.
Great, thank you. I have whistleblowers that have said that they're on board ships and they have many different species. They tend to group them, and so they have a similar environment, so they don't have a lot of different atmospheres or ecosystems that they have to combine, but they do have a lot of different species working together. Karen, your turn.
Well, I think it's one of the best questions I've heard in a while to really think about it. And I go into the fact that a lot of people the press, of aliens as it's they, like it's like this monolithic they, and it's maybe like all Greys, and that they right, have the same agenda, which seems kind of hostile, like if you were going to do like a science fiction presentation of them. But my own experience in talking with other people is a lot more complex. I think we have groups that have mixed feelings about us. They kind of like look at how we handle the planet and our violence, and they rightfully so question, what should be done with us. I think there's like a question of what should be done with us, because if in the Anunnaki story, we're kind of a created race, started out to be a slave race, a helpers, or something to that effect, and we're in essence kind of coming into our own. And the late A.R. Gordon impressed me a lot with that, is that we need to speak up for our own selves as one species, and we don't have that identity. We sort of have a Hydra, many-headed nation-state sort of thing going on right now. But I don't think we see each other as us. But it's a fair question to say, are they loving toward us, or are they hateful toward us? Well, the reverse of that is a human loving or is a human hateful. Well, it depends on the human that you meet. Generally speaking, though, I agree that they are benevolently working together and very curious. And I also think that they're doing different things. It kind of depends on what group is doing what. I'm a little bit more plugged into interdimensional, so they're doing very large, working with a large frequency, high frequency, large area of our development, globally, I'd say. And then others are working very much individually. That's why we're having a lot of personal contact, because that way we have our own experience and we don't have to depend on the experience of others or someone else to tell us, what we saw, what we heard, or what we felt. So, like I said, it depends on the group. Some of them are coming to us in ships. Some of them don't need ships, or they manifest what looks like ships. And some are involved in our government, and our government's a mixed bag, I think, too, with white hats and black hats. So a lot of it is, what are we going to do with ourselves? We do have that free will component, and they're watching to see, like, what are we going to do with ourselves? Are we going to continue to be people, races with learned helplessness, or are we going to grow up and, resolve issues that are resolved already to a lot of these races? Homelessness, healthcare, the provision for every member. So this is the feeling I got. But generally speaking, I think definitely if they wanted to take us over or harm us or take us out, it'd be done already, because of the level of technology that's available that I believe they use beneficially and not to our harm necessarily. So yeah, it depends on which one you're involved with, but generally speaking, benevolent, yeah.
Great. Well, we have a break at 56, so we have a few more minutes. So I think this is such an important question. Let's do like a little wrap-up comment. Sasha, would you like to address this question one more time before we
I think the point is to open yourself to a contact with the alien presence that can facilitate your well-being and the well-being of people on this planet, to actively call for this spirits or the guides or the archetypes within and without to help you understand more of the cosmos. And I think that it's there and it's available to all of us. And so give it a try and let us know what happens.
Great. And I think that there are more and more people coming out of the closet. We suffer from pluralistic ignorance, and we are under the misconception that this is something that isn't happening. But as more experiencers come out of the closet and talk about their experiences, the more people remember that they're experiences, or they agree that they're experiencers, and they start talking about it. And so we are witnessing at this time a shift in consciousness. And every time I go out to one of these conferences or groups and I start talking with people about their contact, there seems to be more people than not. Most people have some kind of unexplained phenomenon like ghosts, or they see ships or lights in the sky, and many, a great percentage of those are having contact. So go ahead.
Well, it's just one of the most interesting things is Roosevelt was adamant when an ET came to his office and rapped with him, and he wanted the American people to know. And so the people that were agitating for secrecy they auditioned all these people. They chose Orson Welles to do H.G. Wells' thing and then make this huge deals. And they said to Roosevelt, "See, can't do it, can't let him know." But it was staged for. That's where the secrecy was imposed upon an otherwise compassionate president who was willing to share with us.
So that was the War of the Worlds
phenomenon
with Orson Welles. And was that from the book you're reading by, who's that by?
Lay.
Okay. Anyway, there's a new book, and what's it called? Do you know? Oh, he doesn't know what it is. He'll go get it. All right. So back to Barry. We have a few more minutes before the break. What would you like to add?
I'm going to come at this kind of from a unique way by the fact, I'm told that the souls of aliens are the same as the souls of humans, and that we all go to the same heaven, and that there's a oneness. Mu has told me that my soul has actually reincarnated on other planets as part of the learning process. So if you think of the conceptually of the souls, that we are one with the aliens. I mean, maybe I'm not being clear here in what I'm trying to say, but I think that there is a oneness, that all souls are similar in the galaxy. You have the ability to reincarnate as a different on a different planet, as a different shape, as a different being, as part of your learning and your soul experience. But if you think of humans and aliens as a holistic oneness, I guess is one way to say it, then maybe you can understand better how they're leading us along the path of learning, so that when your soul is in a human form, they're trying to lead us to where all souls are at the same level and at the same level of learning. And at some point, we'll be able to explore the other planets and be as one with the other aliens that are in our galaxy.
Oh. Okay.
So
Karen,
I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It makes sense to me. I understand that. One of the things that gets me about your thing about saying Mu is dead, in a way, if you get away from our intellectual idea of time, we haven't been born yet. We're simultaneously alive in many places, and we've already died. And so that in a way, you haven't been born yet to Mu, even though he may have died to you.
The spirits think of death as the beginning. We think of death as the end. But death is just simply the beginning of another life cycle. It's all in how you think about it.
Mm-hmm. I've been becoming aware lately of my multidimensional self, and I'm experiencing a phenomenon, I'm going to put it out there, where I access where I'm already dead, and I'm looking back to this time with great nostalgia about, wasn't it great when we, just like the same phenomenon you have in your current life when you look back to when you were born, or the 50s or 60s when you were a child. I'm having this future self that I'm aware of looking back at myself now. And I'm going, what in the world is going on here? It's almost like I'm time traveling. Has anybody else experienced that? And I'm struggling with words to try to even describe it. But when I have this awareness, there's great joy and tears, and it's like I've accessed maybe the part of me that's left on the other side.
Remember when we did those radio programs?
Yes, it's like that. Karen, we got about 3 minutes. I'll toss the ball back in your court.
Well, I've had a very direct experience kind of like that. We went to, believe it or not, we went to the laundromat in our town, and I apparently had a conversation with a lady that looked like older me, and I don't recall it. But my partner and his daughter totally watched the happening, and they were like, does she know she's talking to her future self? So I've had a very I'm just now starting to recall it because of the way they described how she dressed. But apparently future me visited me. But I feel like I've had like a running conversation with maybe what I would call a Holy Spirit or God or something like that. But now I'm kind of thinking that is me. It's like, it's me talking to me, talking especially through difficult issues where I feel like, why am I here? Why should I stay here? I've struggled with health issues and thought I wasn't going to stay alive. And I was at least at one timeline where I was definitely on my way out and I was rescued. So it's like, yeah, it's the higher self maybe too. And I also feel that some of the beings I feel like I'm in contact with are really so close to some energy of who I am. It's just me talking to me, but I'm in another planet or another existence or a past life or future. You know, it's like the tree. Like you see the tree that goes all the way back to the trunk of oneness of God, splitting itself into soul families, and finally we're just that leaf on the tree. But we somehow have a connection to a leaf on the other side of the tree through the trunk, right through the oneness thing that Barry was talking about. So that's kind of how I look at it poetically, and it seems to make a lot of sense to me how that works, that we're talking to the oneness of everything that is ourselves that we're a part of.
Right, and Whitley Strieber talked about this phenomenon in The Secret School, which I read about 20 years ago now, and I'd forgotten about it, but now you were talking about, you talked to your future self at the laundromat. He had an experience where he was in a classroom, and he saw an older gentleman come into the classroom, and then he lived his life, and then he was the older gentleman walking into the classroom, seeing himself as a student. So it just makes you wonder what's going on a soul level or a spiritual level, and what's going on this 3D level, which we call human reality. So we're coming up on the commercial. It should be coming any second now after the commercial. If you panel members could think about what we're going to talk about, I'd love to hear your questions. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Aloha and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And I'm your host, Janet Kier Lesson, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lesson. And we are leading a discussion panel called Aliens Among Us with guests Karen, Christine Patrick, and Barry Strohm. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go to that donation button on freedomslips.com and make your donation. $1, $5, $15, $20, whatever you can donate is greatly appreciated. And we do thank you very much for your donation. Sasha, Dr. Lesson, what would you like to add?
Oh, I would just like to add that in this round, I would like us to discuss reincarnation, both in general terms, but also in terms of what past life scripts have each of the people discovered about themselves, and how those looking at those scripts allowed a rescripting or altered your current relations. In other words, how does looking at your past lives and how did your looking at your past lives influence and improve your current relating?
Okay, let's start with Karen.
Yeah, that's a relatively new philosophical thing I've been exploring in my life in terms of I had a Christian upbringing like you, Janet, and, you know, it was like you have your life, you're judged by God, you go to heaven or hell. That was kind of a simple script. You know, it works for control. It works, it simplifies things, but I personally came to a different conclusion. And a couple of things happened. One really strong past life memory that I have. First of all, when I was a little kid and I was learning history, and I learned about the Library of Alexandria and then it got burned, I was terribly distressed. I was pretty young. I was like, oh, this is the worst thing I've ever heard, all that knowledge. Almost like I'd been there or something. And I explored that. Later in my life, I did a historical reenactment, and I decided to do a character or persona from Alexandria, Egypt. And it was so strange. I would start to get an impression about how they used to live and how they dressed and everything. And then I did the research, and I'd be pretty spot on. So I became kind of convinced that was at least one significant time, and I was there at the time that the library was burned. So somehow involved in speaking books out and getting them to Ireland and other places. I don't know if that's historically accurate, but that was the feeling I got. And it was like, oh, and that's why I had that just visceral feeling. And how I feel about books and learning and everything has really been a huge part of my life, and a love of history as well, and why it's important. And looking for the lost things, looking for the lost books and things that are not, you know, that's on the banned book list, right, of history. So that, I think, was real influential. And I do recall a feeling of being a interdimensional being, the physicality of which would be like an energetic being that looks a little bit like a jellyfish. And that I came to Earth was part of the, you know, bringing the level up and helping to mature the planet. So I have a above it all, not in a haughty sense, but just an overview feeling about the planet and the people on it, and a real just like love for Earth and love for Earth beings and the entire planet and nature. I've been able to experience nature quite a bit. So I'd say those two things right there have influenced me quite a bit. Yeah.
What a powerful script. Yeah.
Wow. Barry.
Yes.
Your turn.
Actually, I'm very interested in prior lives. I've written quite a bit about it. Whenever we get guests in here for channeling sessions, they usually are interested in priors. I actually have quite a bit of experience with my own. In my last two, I actually had a split life. I was born in the Hershey area and always been drawn to the Gettysburg battlefield. I mean, as a kid, I'd ask my parents to take me out there on weekends. And once we started getting into this channeling, I was actually introduced to a prior life friend of mine, and he and I both fought over at Gettysburg as Confederates. They filled in the history of it. I was in the 31st Virginia Regiment, fought on Culp's Hill, 2nd and 3rd day, survived the battle, and then died in that lifetime. My name was Bernard Carter, and I passed shortly after the Battle of Gettysburg. And my soul was actually split in preparation for my book that's coming out in 9 months. We channeled with General George Custer about the Battle of Little Bighorn, and he told me all the secrets and what happened there. And I found that I was being called to go out to the battlefield. A couple of years ago, I took my grandkids out, and we went into this bookstore out there, and this book on the Native American side of the battle and was jumped into my hands in the bookstore. Read it, became very interested in that side of it. My guides told me we needed to go back last year, which we did, and they said we'd be introduced to some very important people. I met the head of the Crow Nation. They let me go into all the private areas. I photographed sections of the battlefield that people just can't get into. Came back, got the channeling board out, and I asked my guides what in the world was going on. I said, why am I drawn to the Little Bighorn? And the guide says, because you fought there. And I went, okay, was I with Custer? Answer is no, not Custer per se. You were a Native American. I said, was I a scout? Yes. What was my Indian name? And the guide comes back, and I have all this on video, by the way, so this really did take place. The guide comes back and he says, your name was Yellow Cloud, but the soldiers called you Billy. Now, if you go on to the list, pull up all of the Native American scouts that fought at the Little Bighorn, you will find out that there is one called Billy Cross. He was a half-breed Lakota translator. So the guides nailed it historically for me. Wow. And when I walk out there, I feel, the old, I've been here. And apparently I was an Indian scout for Reno and survived the Battle of Little Bighorn. And then I asked them where I was buried, and then they said you were, apparently I passed shortly afterwards, and I was on a burial pyre in Montana, and they filled in all the details. And I actually know many more of my priors, so reincarnation for me is absolute, and I am just impressed with what I seem to have gone through in the past. I'll tell you one more little one. We had 2 channeling sessions with General George Patton. He actually was not killed in Germany, and I write about that in my upcoming book also. But at the end of my first session with General Patton, I said, I want to thank you for coming through for us. And he says, son, I chose you. Just like that at the end of the session. And I went, okay. After it was over, I asked my guide, I said, why, did he say something like that? And the answer was that you are part of his soul family. So the next channeling session, I call the general back in, and we get some more details for the book. And then I asked him how we were related. And somewhere around 1100, General George Patton's soul and my soul were brothers, and we actually fought together in one of the armies and battles of the time around 1100. And in another lifetime, he was an uncle of mine. So we do an awful lot of research into prior lives.
Fascinating. Do you want to take a turn?
Okay. When I was working with Stan Groff in my training in psychotherapy, I had a regression where I was living in a small village, a shtetl in Belarus, and the Cossacks kept coming to our village, and I really thought they were groovy. I thought we should be friends with them. and the people in the village, the shtetl, the Jewish people, were haughty and looked down on the Russians. And I said, but they're fun, they're really cool. And things got bad and things got worse, and the Cossacks were getting madder and madder. So I took my small family, my wife and my child, and left. And after I left, I heard the pogrom had begun in the village and all these horrible things. And as we crossed the Caucasus, I was attacked. My family was attacked by a bear, and I knew I didn't have a chance. But I sent the family on, the girl and the wife, and I died fighting that bear. And what I learned was make friends with the people you're living among, and take care of people.
But didn't you go? You could go forward. You saw that she was okay.
Yes.
What happened?
That this family survived, and in the customs of my people, it's through the mitochondrial DNA that the line is continued, and so we're here in Maui because of that experience.
Great. And so I came in remembering a lot of my past lives, and I've done some further hypnosis on it, but many of my memories came back spontaneously. After a year of meditation, I started getting downloads of who I was before. And I'm not going to share everything because it's very personal, but the one that I kept having from the moment of my birth into this form was that I was some kind of young man during the storming of the Bastille Revolution, and I fell to my death, and I kept reliving the point where I fell to my death. And then I had that from about age 2, 3, or 4, and I kept having this dream repeatedly until I was well into my 20s. And I would wake up, just before I hit the ground. And, I knew it was a man at that time, but I was a very agile, I was like a male version of my, I was a small male, and I was like a male version of my current body, where I'm very tiny, very short, and I was French. And I remember all the buildings in France, but I realized that even if we were to travel there, a lot of those buildings no longer exist. I think the Bastille itself is gone. So I've been tracking this down. Years later, fast forward, I meet a lover. I get married to my husband, and he's he has something with his neck. He keeps, like, you can't touch his neck. And then I was talking to, no, this was my second husband, and I would say, what's going on in your neck? And he'd get all freaked out. Well, then after I went to this meditation class, I had more memories, and it was like, oh, he was the woman that I was in love with, and we were trying to rescue her, and she got beheaded. And then fast forward another about 5 to 10 years, and I met this other man, and he was the man that was with me trying to rescue this woman, and we all died. And anyway, it was just interesting that across this lifetime, I kept meeting people that would trigger memories about, this French Revolution thing. And in fact, the man I met later in life was very much into fencing, and he did those Renaissance fairs where he would dress up in that time period. So it's very, very interesting to see all the correlations. And I realized that I am a multidimensional being simultaneously living in many worlds, perhaps, and I have memories of being, some kind of being in the ocean, and I can swim in the ocean as easily as I can walk down the street. It's just like nothing to swim. And so I have these other memories of being on other planets, other worlds, and I try to sort it out here. And then I have about a dozen past life memories, and I'm still researching the different aspects, because there's a couple that are kind of and I don't want to say they're famous people, but they were during periods where famous people, we still had historical information on famous people. Like one of my lifetimes was during Henry VIII's court, and so I can try to figure out who I was in that court, but I remember being at court. So I think that's all I want to say on that. Sasha, you're writing down something. Did you have something to say?
Oh, it's for the next round.
Okay. So who's next? I'm getting confused. You go next, and then.
Okay, so the round that I propose now is for each of us to personify, to enact, to allow our vocal apparatus to bring forth one of our guides at this very moment and see what it has to say to the world of listeners.
All right. Barry or Karen, which one of you would like to do that first? Hi, are you there? Barry,
yeah,
would
I'm thought on that one. That one caught me off guard.
Okay,
Let
Karen,
somebody else
would you
go
like
for
to
a minute here.
Yes, off guard is really good.
Off guard is good. Okay. Karen, I know you talk about your guides all the time, and they
So
communicate
B1,
with you.
be a guide, state your existence. What are you like as Karen's guide?
Well, I don't feel like I want to completely vocalize it, but I can translate. One of the guides that's kind of come to me through this whole call is because we were talking about ships and the different species, and one of them is Tobot. It's like with a lot of these Tobot, like that, who's an insectoid scientist from a very xenophobic planet where there's volunteers to leave the planet and go be on ships and go explore. But once they leave, they can't come back. And I've interacted with him visually quite a bit. So I've seen where he lives. I've seen the ship where he's at. And then he's used my eyes to see where I was living when I lived in Washington State, because the thing that he was totally fascinated with is that we have an ocean on the surface of our planet. That was very unusual because most planets have their water underground. And he's very interested in human culture. And basically, the volunteers are able to telepathically send the information about what they're exploring back to their planet. And their life cycle is they are asexually reproducing, and they grow up together as a family. And they have standing water only in pockets of caves on their planet because it's too hot. It goes into steam. And he's terribly excited right now to be asked to communicate. By the way, he's very enthusiastic and his energy is super positive, and he loves humans. He thinks they're very interesting. The only thing that he and his people don't understand is why we allow our children to suffer the way that we do. This is the thing that's very disconcerting about human culture, because they're very xenophobic and careful with their youngling, basically, allowing them to be in very pristine conditions, giving them a great education. They're all well fed and taken care of. And it's very disconcerting to know that we have starving children in the streets of many, many cities, and human trafficking. And it's like, this is like the human race has got a bad reputation in these areas of our race. That we have a beautiful planet and we have good potential, but we have bad guidance. So he's hoping that we will especially tune in on the care of children, and that'll open our hearts to take care of everything else. So that's Topaz.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you, Chobot. We really appreciate hearing from you and using Karen to communicate. Thank you.
He says you're welcome, and many, many good, hopeful things for human. He's rooting for us, and his people are rooting for us.
Cool.
Thank you. Barry, your turn.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of at a loss on this one because I'm not real good with the mental communication with my guides. They'll communicate, but it's when they want to do it, and we use that channeling board, and that's generally how I do most of my communication. I can do mental work with them, but really I kind of.
If you imagine, Barry, that you had your little board, you had your board right before you now, and you were asking for a communication on the board, can you see your hand or hands doing whatever they do, and imagine that you're getting a communication and see what comes forth now?
Actually, what I'm seeing in my mind is this blue alien laughing at me right now.
Cool. And what do you think? What are you picking up? What's his demeanor? What's he communicating by his laughing?
Well, he knows that I'm in a quandary right now because he's not helping me, and he's standing by me laughing. That's what I'm seeing in my head right now. He's got a great sense of humor. I mean, I will give him credit for that.
So, Barry amuses you. Is that right?
He just said yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take you off the hot seat, but I realized that Sasha asking that question is getting us all out of our comfort zone. And this is an ability that all of us have to allow our guides to come through and speak. So with that being said, I have two very dominant, prominent guides. I'm sure there are more than two, but the two that I access the most frequently are Nima and Enki. Enki and I have had this ongoing communication. I'll describe what's going on. For years and years and years and years, when I was a young girl, I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey. So that was like 1969 or 70, whatever year that was. So I was 15 or 16 years old. And there was a point in that movie where the astronaut was in an all-white room communicating with whatever. So Enki, who has a sense of humor, was meeting me in that all-white room of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I couldn't even see what I was sitting on. It was just white. Everything was white. And I couldn't see who I was talking to. But I would relax into it for years and years and years, and I would ask questions. I'd find myself there repeatedly, night after night. Okay, I'm here. What's this about? Well, just talk to your guide and ask questions. And so this ongoing conversation allowed me to get through life, and my life was not easy. I had a lot of abuse in my life. I've forgiven all the characters in my play, but it was not an easy childhood. And then I did have this ongoing communication with extraterrestrials. I had many quote-unquote abduction experiences. I had ghosts contacting me. And I realized that I was not an ordinary human being. And so he was there helping me, like the father figure I wish I had. And my poor father, and I love and adore him, he's now deceased, but he suffered horribly from PTSD from World War II. So then as I grew older, I finally got the external feminine figure, which was Nima. And Nima came along later in life. But Nima helped me with my struggle with violence on this planet. I just could not understand. Like you were saying that Moo said, no, that was Karen. Your guide said, what is it that we're doing to the children? And this awareness came to me. Actually, it was kind of like with John Denver. I don't know if you remember John Denver when he came on the scene. He did these specials, and he was talking about the environment. And he had that beautiful song, Rocky Mountain High. And I would watch his specials, and I would just sob. And I would be in a panic attack, like, what can I do about this? What's going on this planet? And I've been witnessing this. I'm 62 years old now. And so I have this ongoing relationship. I often fall asleep and I just say, oh, God, help me. Oh, God, help me. And I'm doing this mantra, seeking out my guidance. And then at night, after I relax and I fall into sleep and I get into communication, I get this guidance night after night after night. And then I wake up to the sun rising in Maui and I go, all is good and all is well. So I know things are unfolding, and part of my mission is these communications, these dialogues on the radio shows, because believe it or not, guys, we are doing something. We are making huge changes in consciousness by speaking about these things that were formerly unspeakable. So, Sash, on to you.
Okay, my guide is like a composite guide of Carl Jung and someone I'll call Hal. And what so as Hal, what I want you to know, humanity, and what I want Sasha to know, is that you can embrace all the opposites within you and outside of you, and the parts of the world and other people that you find difficult or you overly admire merely are resonating underdeveloped parts of yourself. And so that if you look at those things and you say, a person, for example, who's being very angry and yelling and even violent, what do you need? What's motivating this behavior? And you'll get to something which is a egocentric need. I need attention, I need affection, whatever it is. And so it is, once you follow my guidance as Hal, you will realize that the apparent other and the apparent opposite is really part of a dimension, and you need to embrace both so you can center yourself, and that is the key to your ascendance, and embracing all of humanity and all of the cosmos. And that's what I, as Sasha's guide, want you, humanity, to know.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to Karen. What would you like to talk about now? We have about a half hour left.
Yeah, the focus has been aliens among us. I would like to kind of explore what Barry has been seeing or sensing. Just to throw a historical, spin on it, is that there have been many reports in the governmental, secret halls of the government that they are working, in some cases, directly with aliens. A.R. Borden absolutely testified to the fact that he was working with a human liaison to a group called The Link. Also, there's a story of stranger in the White House, stranger in the Pentagon, was a alien who came from Venus to talk to the Pentagon people and have dialogue. And also, I have to say, in my lifetime, because I, kind of observe people, there have been people that I just think are from somewhere else, or at least genetically from somewhere else. And also, I want to throw in another concept, is that we have had a hybridization between the human race and other species, and I think there's some glitches there. There's a particular set of birth defects, for instance, that occurs in my genetic line that may be a fact that there's some incompatibility with the DNA of the spine from one race to the other. And because I'm Irish, why do we sunburn under the sun that we supposedly evolved under? And the Anunnaki, some of them were said to be very pale, or there's at least the tall whites who possibly can't even be out under our sun. So I'm just kind of throwing these things out because these are some of the things that indicate. Oh yeah, and also Misha Johnston, I believe it was her that said that she was. I sat and talked to her at the UFO Congress and went to her notebook, and it literally showed alien beings showing up at the gambling tables in Las Vegas, which I thought was terribly humorous, because where else could you be otherworldly than, what happened in Vegas stays in Vegas. So I just, I just thinking about all these different scenarios, and there are blue humans. There are blue humans in the Berber community, ostensibly one family genetically in Kentucky, the Kentucky blue people. We've been talking about the blue people off and on. So basically, yeah, they are among us. A lot of West supporters have said that they, and it makes the government really nervous, that they literally could pass for humans who wouldn't know the difference, and they easily infiltrate. Hopefully for benevolent reasons, but, the government has to do a threat assessment and be suspicious and paranoid, so they've been uncomfortable with the idea that that's so. So I just kind of throwing out those ideas. You guys do something with it.
Barry, do something with it.
Historically, for the aliens, let's talk about that a little bit. I asked Moo one night, how long have the aliens been on Earth? And he said since the time of the dinosaurs. So they've obviously been here a long time. In my book, I have some cave drawings from 1300 BC. They're everywhere. We have the petroglyphs of Utah have got evidence of alien life. And I think that they have been with us in such varied forms throughout history that they've had so much influence on us that we simply don't know. One thing that Moo told us is that the autism that we have in this generation is the result of DNA testing on abductions from back in the 1940s, that they did some DNA testing that had bad results 2 generations later, and that they're no longer allowed to do that type of testing because they found out that, the risks of what they were doing at the time. They say that the animal mutilations, that they're trying to figure out how many ways we're trying to kill ourselves with poison in our food supplies, and that they're testing through the animals, they're running tests to find out all of the poisons that we have now. I was completely caught off guard when I started doing all this research on aliens. I started out as I thought I'd ask a few random questions, find out if they're really here or not, and kind of give up on it. I had no idea that I was going to be led down this road of all the detail that he's been giving to us. I asked him the other night, I said, what's the largest ship that they have out there? And he said, well, actually, there's one the size of the United States that they use as a base. It's in another dimension that we can't see it out there. But there are apparently over 200 types of space vehicles. They range in size from, I guess, the size of the United States down to the size of a baseball. In my book, I have pictures of being followed by a light drone. One night I was on the battlefield and I started taking these pictures, and it was this light bar, and it actually followed me for about 20 minutes out on the battlefield. I have 40 frames of it on 3 different cameras. I have some other pictures that were probably alien vehicles out there at the same time I was. If we really knew what was going on around us, I think we'd be absolutely, utterly shocked. One night and this is a message that he told us, just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. And I would assume that he's really correct about that. We're going to be doing more sessions in the coming weeks. If you guys have some questions you'd like me to ask him, you can send me some emails, and I could try to get some answers for you. But I am in kind of a unique position in that we can communicate on demand with him. He is trying to get the information out. Some of the things that he has given me, I have been very reluctant to print. And I said, how are you going to keep me from getting shot with some of this stuff? And he said, don't worry about it. I dumb things down for you so that you're not in any danger. Yeah, really. So I got this vision of these men in black knocking on my store door here someday. It's an incredible...
they don't knock, they just walk in.
Yeah, and David Icke said, we're so far out that, like you say in your book, we get nutcase dismissed and they don't have to kill us.
Yeah, I think we're so far out there that they think there's no way we can be correct. Yeah, I asked a question to him one night. I said, what was our first president that had contact with the aliens? And he said he thought it was our 10th president. So we've had contact for a hellacious long time in our governent with the aliens.
There's a story how they were doing I think it was the Declaration of Independence, and there was like an angel that appeared on the balcony or something, or maybe it was the Constitution, and they couldn't quite figure out the wording until this angel, they called it, came and gave them what they needed to, the missing piece of what they needed to include. So I think it goes back, to the formation of this nation, that it was an extraterrestrial concept. When you trace back, this concept of this type of independence and freedom is a very recent phenomenon in our history, human history. So I didn't mean to steal the ball, Barry, but
no,
that.
Yeah, Moo has he has a very strange ability. The very first session that we had with him, he told me that when I went to write, an hour before I want to sit down and write, for me to call on him, and he will come to me, and he said, I can actually get into your eyes and see what you write. And then he said, if I don't like what you say or the way you say it, I'll give you a sign like an itchy nose or blurry eyes. And he can do that. I mean, when I sit down, I call on him, and when I sit down, I'll ask him for a sign that he's there, and all of a sudden my damn nose starts to itch. So I am sure that they had that same ability back at the time they were writing the Constitution, and would have the ability to enter the body probably without them even knowing that they're getting this assistance. And I'm sure that's how many of our documents got written through the years.
Yes. Amazing. What else would you like to share? And then we'll go another round.
Just the fact that how he can be with us. We were channeling one night, and we were getting ready to go down to visit our kids down in Florida. And he gave me the message. He said, I want you to go relax. Forget about work for a while. You need, some relaxation. And he said, take Connie out for dinner to a fine restaurant and tell her how pretty she is. We start to drive down to Florida, and I pull into this nice restaurant. And I wasn't really thinking anything about it, but I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden my nose started to itch. And I looked over and I said, Connie, you look really pretty tonight. And immediately my nose stopped itching. So
Connie said, thank you, Moo.
Yes, Connie said, thank you, Moo, and everything worked out. So
yes, Ben, they can be so unconscious about giving their wives compliments. Thank you, Moo.
Yes. He is a true gentleman. We have a lot of other stories like that, too, actually.
Well, that's great. Appreciate it. We'll hear more. I just wanted to, that one thing came to mind when you were talking about I think that the extraterrestrials or interdimensionals or whatever you want to call it were actually instrumental in the terraforming of this planet. And from my research, they revisit this world periodically, and they accelerate the evolution of species. There's truncated periods where we jump, we leap. There's more than just the missing link. And there's times where, our whole progress has been accelerated. We see that individually and collectively. Individually, I hear stories with my whistleblowers and people that are coming forth, and they say that they were upgraded. They were genetically altered or upgraded. And I think we see interference on the personal but is it interference? On the spiritual level, if you look at the Dr. Michael Newton Institute research, where they've hypnotized over 40,000 people from every different culture and place in the planet. And what they uncovered is that there are people, their jobs on the other side, where their souls are, the part of the soul remains there at all times, even though you might send threads of yourself down into other forms. That part, some of those souls are planet developers. And you might have a group that comes into a planet and somebody designs the mountains and the terrain, and someone does the insect life, and someone does, the plant life, and et cetera, et cetera. And so they introduce different life forms into different planets at different times, and the different environments create diversification of existence. So I remembered in one of my past life regressions that I'm a terraformer. And I was looking at the hypnotherapists who got that from me, and I said, what? I'm a terraformer? And then fast forward to the closing of the Borders books, and I go down and, I bought a bunch of books because they were like, a third of the cost. And I'm reading all these books on the Michael Newton Institute, and it talks about the terraforming project of existence. And then there's another book, what was it called? Interview with an Alien, something like that. Alien Interview by Spencer. And it's a book about the nurse that interviewed the Errol the Grey, the one that was didn't die, and they held her captive for many years until she finally left her body, which was, by the way, an avatar. It wasn't really her form, but she assumed an avatar just so we could have something to communicate. But she said that there's actually kind of like the best way to describe it is like a business or a factory, and they customize different life forms for you for your planet, and they're geneticists, right? So to them, using all this DNA is their colors for creating the immense diversification. And so we are all co-creators with Source, and so some of us may be these terraformers going around planting life all over the place and then coming back and checking on it. Sasha, you're full of questions.
Well, it's just there was this exchange program with the people of Serpo, where 12 Americans went to Serpo, and Serpo sent us an ambassador here. And one of the people died en route to the planet, which was in the Zeta Reticuli group. And the Zeta Reticulans, who looked pretty much like us, not quite, started using his body and using the genetics of it to make all these combinations. And of course, our team back in the 50s was horrified, and they said, "No, all the alien races do it. It's an honor that we do these kind of combinations." But in a way, the United States has continued to exist because of the friendly alien intervention to save whatever little democracy we have left. Because in 1947, Admiral Byrd and his fleet were defeated in Antarctica in the battle down there, and the Pine Island was sunk, and 64 Marines were killed. And because the people that lived under the Antarctica, who were in league with the Nazis and the surviving Nazis in New Schwabenland, came out with the anti-grav craft and sunk all these American planes and ships and so forth. And so what happened, however, the Serpo people had been snooping our atomic experiments at Los Alamos, and one of their ships crashed, and there was a survivor. It turns out it was a lowly mechanic, but he was able to make contact with the mothership, and they started this exchange program. And Kennedy authorized his information agency after 25 years to tell the truth about this mission to Serpo by 12 Americans. 4 of them came back after so many years. 2 of them stayed. It was like northern Idaho. They liked it up there. They lived the rest of their lives out there. But they helped us work on the Caldwell round wing planes that we actually had in time, so the Nazis didn't take us over. But however, Alan Dulles brought over the Nazis anyway, and they did take over. So here we are.
Karen, your turn. Karen, are you there? Hello?
Yes, I am.
Karen.
Yes, I am. I didn't get to my mute button in time. No, I love alternative history. I love tidbits that we get from our contacts. A couple of things that I'll point out on the history front is I believe you guys have interviewed Peter Moon, and he brought over the information from Romania about the facility in the Bashigi Mountains, and they found tables and chairs and holographic devices. The tables and chairs were for beings like 9 to 12 feet tall. And just on the terraforming idea and on the hybridization idea, they have these holographic displays where you could like take a human and like a gray and put these tiles together, and up in the 3D form, like sort of like Princess Leia in Star Wars, would pop this combo. Like they could try different combos. They were looking at the different genetics. And I think genetics is one of the trading things. I think it's a coin of the realm, because different genetics have different abilities and capacities. And we're talking about, people who are terraforming are like gardening or doing a botanical garden on a really big scale, So like in England, if you've ever been to a botanical garden, they've got, species from all over the world, and they're making different kinds of orchids and roses and tulips and everything. Yeah, I think that what they're kind of doing is this is a botanical garden, and that's one of the reasons why they're not going to let us destroy it. And the other thing that happened, well, of course, they have the holographic displays. That's something that we actually have that technology to a certain extent, just not real out there in the public. But it's going to really transform our planet once it's kind of green-lighted to be out with the public. But the other one, it was very interesting. I was reading back in history that there was an attempt to flood the Black Sea, and they were chipping away at this mountainside because this was going to destroy all the towns in the valley of the enemy. And so this one group of generals and whatever were chipping away on it. All of a sudden, it got a crack down the middle and flooded the valley that is where the Black Sea is today, as well as the Caspian Sea. Well, they found in this Bashigi mountain facility, basically, I don't exactly know how it works, but like a holographic view of that part of history where somehow or another they just pushed a button or something and it made that earthquake right there that opened up and it caused them to be able to alter history and flood the Black Sea. So I do believe that. I do believe that they're terraforming. They've I think Janet and I have talked about how bees are pollinators, not particularly indigenous to Earth, as well as wheat came in at the same time, and that makes a food infrastructure because the bees pollinate the wheat, and the wheat becomes your green, and then the honey, becomes another food source. And so basically, they've tried, and that would be able to feed a city-state with that, and that was the early food source for city-states because we were like sort of nomadic, free-range humans. I like to say free-range humans. And then the gods of the Anunnaki came and created city-states, and they had to feed everybody. So they brought, some kind of sustainable permaculture with the bees and the wheat. So, when you look at the little dusty corners of history, there's a lot more going on than what we're told in the history books, definitely. And I think it's alien intervention, and they're still doing that, but letting us also participate now as we've become a more mature society and our science is kind of catching up. So it's easier now for us to project, and Sasha, you have spoken to this before, to project that things that we learned in ancient texts are really technology that we now recognize because we've gotten to that point in our development. Go ahead.
Wow. I just want to add one thing, and then we'll pass the baton to Barry. Michael Cremo, in his presentations, talks about finding layers of humanoids in deep layers that are millions, if not billions of years. So perhaps this experiment in the humanoid type form being introduced onto this planet goes back millions of years. And so he very carefully documents how this can't be, anything else, but this is actually a layer deep within and they've uncovered, well, there's all these stories about giants. They're uncovering these giant beings all over the planet, and there's a lot of evidence that the original extraterrestrials that were perhaps the settlers to the Earth were much taller than we currently are. So anyway, a lot of mysteries there. Let's see, I guess Barry's next. We have about, 10, 11 minutes. Barry, your turn.
And what would you like to talk about?
Just free flow consciousness. What would you like to share in the time we have left? And then maybe start wrapping up who you are and how they can reach you. But we do have another 10 minutes, so don't make it too short, but long enough to, get out what a good point that you want to convey to our listeners.
Well, I think the most important point that any of us can bring out when we are talking about the alien existence is the benefits that they bring us, and that they mean us no harm. I was utterly shocked the more and more that we learned about this stuff, just how much they've done in the past. He said that they actually warned us not to do a hydrogen bomb test, and that they had to step in to keep the fusion from actually almost wiping out the entire population of Earth when they did it.
So this is Moose said this. You're saying Moose said this?
Yeah. He said
okay.
He said that they had to step in and stop. They told us not to test the hydrogen bomb, And then when they did, they had to protect us from ourselves, that we damn near wiped out civilization with it. I'm sorry.
Who did they tell not to test it? Who did they tell not to test the bomb? Was it Einstein?
Our government and our scientists, that they were warned not to test the hydrogen bomb.
And how were they warned? Did he tell you? Did they beam into their office? I mean, how did he tell them?
No, he didn't. He didn't go into details whether they typed a letter or how they did it. But he said he said that we were warned ahead of time not to test the H bomb.
Ask him, please, for me. How were we warned, and who was warned? Was it who was that? Truman?
It was Truman, president? At that time.
Yeah. If you could ask him for me, I would love to know the answer to that.
Okay, I'll check with him. We're going to be talking to him here in a couple days anyway.
Thank you.
I find the extent of their participation with humanity now and historically just to be utterly amazing. I mean, almost anything that we look at is tied into an alien contact. The pyramids, the aliens had a strong influence and helped construct the pyramids. In Mexico, we have pyramid in the United States and Illinois, the ones in Africa and Egypt. They told us that the pyramids actually had a big crystal on top of them that they would use for navigation and for energy.
Yes, the Gug Stone.
Huh?
It's called the Gug Stone in Sumerian.
Oh, okay. Very good. It's almost overwhelming when you sit back and think about what they've done for us. He said the MRI machine was given to us by the aliens. They used to use the MRI machine in the early abductions. The Salk vaccine was supposedly given to us by them. And it just goes on and on. Fiber optics. Fiber optics were present at Roswell from the ship that came down there, and they reverse engineered that. But you can see the alien, if you open your eyes, you can see the alien influence in almost everything, everything that we do and the progress that we're making, all the scientific advances. The last generation has made almost exponential advances. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it's tying into the dropping of the veil, so to speak. I don't really think we're too far out where we will have disclosure. I think something will happen that one of the countries have to come out and tell the truth about what is going on. Moose said that our current President Obama is not communicating with them. That he actually has created a bad relationship with the commission and with the alien presence, and that other countries are becoming more advanced because they are still cooperating with what the aliens want.
Let me ask about that. What was that? Do you have any more information on what that was about? Why Obama wouldn't be coming forth as a disclosure president and rather going? I mean, whoever comes out with disclosure is going to be known throughout history as the disclosure, person, president or whatever.
Yeah,
Do you have any more insights on that?
I try not to get too politically involved with things that I say. I hear an awful lot of things, and we get a lot of information. The reason that Moose said that the commission does not like to work with Obama is because they don't consider him an honest person, as he doesn't tell the truth. That is exactly what we were told in one of our sessions.
What president does? Let me ask you that.
Yeah, well,
never mind.
Well, Harry Truman was quite cooperative with the aliens. I mean, they said that Truman actually went for a ride in a spaceship with them.
Okay, so that was part of what came out in your session?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Tell us a little bit about that, please.
But I'm trying to remember the details of it. There was an incident called, what was it, Lights over Washington that happened in the 1940s?
Yes.
there was a lot of sightings, and that was actually the president wanting to take a ride on the ships. That's what all the sightings were about. That apparently he met with them and went up in one of their vehicles and came back down.
Fascinating. I wonder if they landed on the White House lawn. How did they pick him up? Did they beam him up like Scotty, or did he walk into the craft?
I don't know. I didn't go into those details. All he said was that Truman was very interested in the alien presence and cooperated with them, and that's why they cooperated with us during that period. And that was a time of.
Eisenhower?
I'm sorry.
Did Eisenhower? Did Eisenhower? There's all the stories about Eisenhower that, he had a missing day. He was supposed to be at the dentist, but he was actually meeting with the extraterrestrials. Did Eisenhower have any?
Eisenhower did cooperate with them, yes. And he was one of the more. Eisenhower kind of inherited all the stuff from Truman, and they passed the information on, and he did continue cooperating with them.
So what went wrong? Why aren't we further along? These early presidents were cooperating. What happened that we went backwards? And we should have teleportation and space travel on a level where, I could just go visit you for tea in the afternoon and come home for dinner at night. But right now we're still antiquated technologies that are over 100 years old.
We haven't learned to transcend the different dimensions as yet. That is still a knowledge we have to pick up, and I don't think until we can understand and move into the different dimensions that we can really advance to some of the things that you're thinking about.
All right. Sasha, he doesn't have anything to say. We're running out of time. Karen, do you have any last words? And then we'll give Barry the final couple minutes here.
Yeah, I want to mention just on the nuclear story. I got to hear a gentleman by the name of Robert Hastings, and he wrote a book called UFO and Nukes. And this is a really important part of the story. At one point, not too many years ago, most people don't know that 50 ICBM missiles went offline, and they had UFOs flying over them, and they're not connected with each other, so there's no grid to shut down. So it's kind of like they're saying, it's a weapon of mass destruction. Don't play with the matches kitties. It's kind of this, thing. Stop doing this. It's bad. So I just found out today that book will be made into a movie, and that's a common message. It seems like from ET of the directions we should take ecologically, and stay away from certain technologies because they're really bad for us. I think we've been playing with those toys for a while, and we've polluted the environment. We've got the disaster of Fukushima that most people don't pay attention to, but I lived in the Puget Sound, I saw a lot of death of sea life that was very unexplainable. So, yeah, we're going to be continued to be told, what's a good direction and what isn't. We just got to listen. So that's my bit. Thank you. I'm really glad to talk to you, Barry.
So I have a question. So you said that you heard this today, UFOs Exist by Robert Hastings, and who's making it into a movie? And could you tell us a little bit more?
I don't know. I just found out today. I'll try to chase that down because that's going to be when I heard him speak, that's just going to be really, really informative. And hopefully they'll have a lot of the UFO clips, the things that go along with the story. For instance, that Russian meteorite that was coming down, they slowed it down on a dashboard cam, and you saw some kind of missile split the meteor into pieces, and it rendered it unable to damage the Earth. So these are the kinds of things I hope will be in it. Maybe I'll find out more as soon as I can.
Oh, yes, because we have evidence of some kind of planetary protection that goes back to the Incan Mayan. There's a carving where it shows that there's some kind of a system that prevents things like that asteroid coming and doing what happened previously with the dinosaurs, right? So there is some evidence that the extraterrestrials do have some kind of intervention system, especially if you look around the sun. They appear to be blasting things that are coming into our solar system, which are possibly detrimental. Sasha, we have one more minute. Let's let Barry, how do people reach you and the names of your books?
My current book is Aliens Among Us, Exploring Past and Present. It's on Amazon. It's a bunch of different booksellers there have it. If you want to contact me, your best bet is to come to my website. It's spiritspredict.com, just spiritspredict.com. I've got several other websites they can click over to. Most of the spiritual information that we've channeled is on another website called messagesofheaven.com. I do a newsletter where we send out our future predictions when they're given to us. We have done quite a few very good predictions. I posted 9 months before it happened that the last pope was going to retire. You can sign up for my newsletter. It's free. If you don't like it, you can opt out of it. Spiritspredict.com, that's the best way to go. My email address is on there if you want to send me an email. Specific questions, let me know. I'll try to get answers. And thank you.
And that was perfect timing. Thank you very much,
The
Sasha.
divine in us salutes the divine in all you listeners.
Thank you much. Thank you, Barry, Karen. Namaste.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who owns you? If you're not in control, then someone else is. Join me, Ivy West, for Voices on the Wind, Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in Studio A. I discuss government, health, metaphysics, suppressed science, universal mysteries, little-known incredible facts, alternative energies, and even more than you can imagine. Won't you join us on Revolution Radio Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern for Voices on the Wind with me, Ivy West.
There are lives in the balance, people under fire, children at the cannons.
Because if your head's in the sand, your tail is a target.